Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Mag 7 update for the week of Monday, June 8th, 2026. We begin with Microsoft. Big week, really, in all the stocks last week. And in fact, I don't want to start here. I'm going to start here with the broader S&P 500. This is the ETF, actually the SPY. So we provide daily SPY analysis every day, of course, at wickedstocks.com. And you can see here on the weekly chart, key reversal high, bearish engulfing pattern in candlestick speak, new all-time high closing back below the previous week's low, puts this market on the defensive, back on its heels, actually, as we move through the rest of June and through July. There is this possibility of falling to 677.84. Also consistent with the key reversal high on the daily chart last week. We settled, well, early in the week we had a sell signal. You might note that. If you trade the SPY or if you follow the S&P 500, you might become a subscriber at wickedstocks.com because we provide this kind of analysis on a daily basis where we gave an early sell signal. This was a Wednesday sell signal, and then Friday sell-off. Friday got hit hard and closed below classic channel bottom that indicates, along with that key reversal high, likely bearish continuation, dare I say, into the 670s. I mean, there are levels on the way down that we point out at wickedstocks.com, different Fibonacci levels and other structures to pay attention to, but this is a significant turn of events. Probably is a good, well, that's not saying much, a good high for the rest of the second quarter, which ends at the end of this month, but well into July. And in fact, this could be a good high through the third quarter, because if we do fall into the 670s, it could take every bit of 2 to 3 months to rally back to new highs. Anyway, that is the bottom line with the broader market, obviously on its heels bearish. And I'll go back to Microsoft and show that Microsoft obviously put out a new sort of what are we going to go back to January, a new 6-month high, basically, and then fell away, closing negative on the week, but still above this significant channel structure. Now, yes, we did close below this structure a little bit in February, not by a wide margin, but most decisively in March, fell away for a few weeks, then we closed back above it, and since then it's been holding nicely. These longer-term structures you still pay attention to because they are still valid. They might not be as trend defining as they once were prior to the initial violation, but there's still levels to pay attention to in terms of directional likelihoods. A base of support begins at 410.17 and ends at this newly formed rising channel bottom that spans 2-3 months, 405.91, coming together on a gradual basis. This is your base. If we close below it, yes, bearish through the rest of June and really quite possibly through the entire third quarter. This would be a significant sell signal were we to close below 405.91. But until then, if you're interested in buying Microsoft at this point in time, ever so gingerly, you can buy the 405.91 to 410.17 area because, yes, still above this zone over the next couple of months, 487.05 remains in reach. Let's take a look at the next chart of Microsoft. And here I just show that if we can close above that high settlement price from a couple of weeks ago, probably with that kind of volatility, we'll see next week 487.05. 487.05, this former channel bottom, able to contain monthly buying pressures. We could fall away from here if we close above it. We probably have a good low for the rest of the year. Let's move on to Meta. Meta also closed in a sell signal. Now, once again, very similar to Microsoft in the previous example, closed below a meaningful one-year channel bottom back in March, then back above it a few weeks later. It held pretty nicely as we continue it into early May, but we closed below it last week. And I'm going to take this as a sell signal down to 551.88, probably this week, and down to 488.24 over the next couple of months. If we happen to collapse this week and close below 551.88, I think quite possibly by the end of June, we could see 488.24. So the accelerator in reaching 488.24, which I consider to be kind of a 1 to 2 month target anyway, would be a settlement below 551.88. Until then, if you're a 3 to 5 day swing trader, 1 to 2 week swing trader, 551.88 support is not to be ignored because we can bottom out from here back to 605.38. But ultimately, if you're more of a 1 to 2 month position holder, just know that if you own Meta, you can anticipate, I think, the upper 480s, low 490s over the next couple of months, where we could bottom out through the rest of the the year, you can make a very strong case that the last 3-year bull market remains clearly intact above 488.24. So 488.24 is what I would call investment grade support, long-term support, able to contain selling through the rest of the year. And from here, we can move on to new highs within a matter of, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, something like that. Let's talk about upside. If we close back above 605.38, I do then see, once again, this 679.62 descending channel top as in reach, possibly within 3 to 5 weeks. Let's just call it by the end of July, 679.62 in reach if we close this week back above 605.38. 605.38 would neutralize the sell signal. Is it a significant buy signal? No, but I don't think you want to be short anymore. Going long term in Meta, I think is a settlement above 679.62. Then you're in the clear, so to speak. You're out of all of this wild two-sided framework that has played out for the last 8-9 months. And if we can close above 679.62, good low for the year, that all-time high of 796.25, likely then within about 2 to 3 months. And as we continue through the rest of the year and into the first quarter of next, I wouldn't be surprised to see 909.38. In fact, that would be my long-term target were we to close in Meta above 679.62, but we are a long way from that right now. A bearish through June and into July below 605.38. On to Alphabet. Alphabet last week, a couple of weeks ago, threw off a sell signal. Actually, 3 weeks ago, it threw off a sell signal with what I call this mini reversal. It new all-time high, and we closed negative on the week. Had we closed below the previous week's low, that would have been a key reversal. The key reversal high is a little bit more significant than the mini reversal, but this is a sign of weakness unto itself. The following week, we closed below the low of the high, and that obviously resulted in, I think we gapped lower on Monday, continued south. Here we are, a 349 even is that high that was put out back in February. This is decent support, but I do think there's a real solid case to be made for anticipating 304.02 over the next few months. And if we close this week below 349 over the next 3 to 5 weeks. So by the end of July, if we close this week below 349, possibly within just 2 or 3 weeks, 304.02 is a newly formed, based on recent highs, channel bottom that spans the better part of a year and can contain selling through Q3. From here, we could round up to new highs, actually, within several months of testing 304.02. So long-term, still bullish Alphabet, but near-term, we remain bearish below 381.77, the low of the high, expecting 349 pretty quickly, probably this week, 304.02 in reach by the end of July. Perhaps upside, if we close back above 381.77, this 405.81 channel top in reach again. Now, we did close above it about 5 weeks ago, only to fall away. So, but what I still like about it as a signal for upward continuation into later year is the fact that it would also be a settlement above the all-time high settlement price on the weekly chart of 400.80. So if we did close above 405.81 in the weeks ahead, I think that is an indication of longer-term bullish continuation through the third quarter within 3 to 5 months or so, this full channel extension anticipated, but we're nowhere near that framework right now. Where we are is on the defensive still below 381.77. So if we close above 381.77, and if you're short on a 2 to 3 week basis, 1 to 2 month basis, you may lighten up or exit that short position altogether and then see where we are with respect to 405.81. It is go long above 405.81 into later year, but that's not going to happen this week. On to Amazon. Amazon sold off, settled below this newly formed descending channel bottom that this week is at 251.38. This is your ceiling initially. This is a short sale area, and below which this stock remains decidedly bearish as we move through the week and really through the rest of June. With the present volatility, I'm going to call 219.41 a 3 to 5 week objective. This former descending channel top is pretty solid support, especially as over the next couple of months, it converges with this rising channel bottom that spans, about a year and a half of activity. 195.20, 219.41, they all come together in late August in the very low 200 region. So I'm not saying, it's hard to say that the timing is everything here, right? So we have high volatility, and holding below 251.38 252.38. We could, by the end of June, test this 219.41 level. And by the end of June, it is at 214.94, as you can see in that yellow box. So that could be it. That could be it to the downside, and then we could stabilize and then round up. And we'll just kind of take the buy signal to the upside from there. But what the point I'm really trying to draw out here is that even if we were to close below 219.41 in the next 2 or 3 weeks, then we are expecting just as quickly 195.20, which I consider to be the backstop really through the third quarter and into later year. From here we can round up. But near-term heavy, that is to say, a bearish now through the rest of June, expecting 219.41 and dropping. Now, if we close back above 251.38 this week, or any day this week is a bit of a neutralizer, but certainly on Friday neutralizes that sell signal. But it's hard to get very bullish about Amazon when we've got these channel structures well above the market. So this is a little different. And so I just want to take it back. You got 251.38 heavy below. I don't turn bullish Amazon through the rest of June unless we can close above both the low of the high and the high of the low, which was last week's high. So in other words, if we can close this week above 268.79, our focus shifts to the upside, but it only shifts for a few weeks into this 280.201 to 290.55 area. This is an area that we tested, at least by one measure, when we tested the inside channel back in early May. And this low 280s, low 290s is a significant ceiling of resistance, may contain buying through the entire third quarter. We could fall away. And yes, if we closed above 290.55 in the coming weeks, that would be an indication of a good low for the balance of the year and likely aggressive gains as we move through the rest of the year. But for right now, we are on the defensive. You could say below this 266, 268.79 area, we remain heavy. Selling pressures can continue to build. 219.41 in reach. And we are really decidedly bearish this week below 251.38. Holding below this level does allow selling pressures to continue accumulating and sending this market south pretty quickly over the next 2 to 3 weeks to 219.41. NVDA covered every single day. Here, just broad brush stroke. We've been mentioning how the 193.22 formation, solid zone to buy into. We'll probably see that this week. Once again, at wickedstocks.com, we provide structures that show where you can sell against upside, anticipating now 193.22 with present volatility this week, where we could bottom out actually through July and round up again into the 240s within 2 to 3 months of doing so. Closing below 193.22, expect the upper 170s within another week or two. There are other things going on here that we show in terms of long-term support in the 170s that we're not here. I just can't give too much away. We've got people who subscribe to this information on a weekly basis. And so this is broad brush stroke. Let's take a look at Tesla. Now, Tesla, we provide every single day, as you're probably well aware, on our Wicked Stocks YouTube channel. And this is kind of old news in terms of the structures, but these are new levels. Dropping every week is 446.78, our ceiling of midterm resistance, below which we can and probably will fall back to long-term support at 356.99. I don't know about this week. Anything is possible. But if testing, I should say retesting this one-year channel bottom, as we did, if you recall, back in early April, can contain selling through the third quarter, even perhaps the rest of the year. And from here, we can round up and onward to new highs to the 543.45 6-year channel top by the end of the year. That would become clearly indicated. If we close above 446.78 this week, we've got a buy signal within 3 to 5 weeks to 498.83, which is the December all-time high of last year. And I think within 2 to 3 months of closing above 446.78, you can anticipate 543.45. So if you're kind of a 2 to 3 month swing trader or position holder, you're long above 446.78. Until then, if you're a 3 to 5 week, 1 to 2 month position player, you may have been selling this upper area, as we've been advising, holding out for the 356.99 objective, which is in reach here over the next week or two, possibly this week. If we close below 356.99, all bets are off. In fact, we've got a good high for the rest of the year. I would expect the 220s, which I'll illustrate next week. But you can also watch day to day if you check out Tesla at our YouTube channel. Let's see. Last thing, Palantir, not part of the Mag 7. But nonetheless, this is a bit of a head fake, no doubt, on Monday. We opened above this critical area only to collapse back later in the week. That's why the settlement is so essential. Where you close on the weekly chart on a Friday afternoon really is your key indicator for a directional likelihood. And if we did close this week Friday above 157.52, which I think is a long shot right now given what's happening in the broader market, then we can anticipate within 2 to 3 months 207.52. And by the end of the year, I think within 6 months, there's plenty of precedent for that kind of movement, this 243.67 longer term channel top. But right now, this is still your sell zone near to midterm. And from here, let me jump to the next chart. We should probably this week fall into this area. Now, you've got 125.41. I've been talking about that for months, but you also have this newly formed, based in part on last week's high, horizontal channel bottom at 123.85. This is a solid zone to buy into, day traders, 3 to 5 day and 3 to 5 week swing traders, because from here we can round back up into the upper 150s, as I've already illustrated in the previous chart. But if we do close this week below 123.85, I'm going to go with a good high through the third quarter, possibly the rest of the year, within 1 to 3 weeks with present volatility. 100.23 is likely. And I think within 2 to 3 months of closing below 123.85, you must allow the low to mid 60s, this low area, I think, in play if we close below 123.85. Now, this channel bottom will, by October, late October, be converging with that anyway. But we'll see how this all plays out. This is to be respected, 100.23, as a level that can contain monthly lows, which is a long time in this stock, meaning that within 1 to 3 weeks, we can rally right back into the low to mid 120s. And if we then close back above this area, well, that's another buy signal to the upside. So we'll take it 1 week at a time. I do think that we're going to kind of change things up here. Excuse me for that cough. Hopefully we can edit that out. As we move forward, we're looking at changing the Mag 7 to kind of, adding some of the semiconductors, the semiconductor stocks, Intel, AMD, Micron, et cetera, to the mix. Maybe it'll be like, I don't know, we'll call it a different name, but it'll be like the top 10, if you will, or the Mag 10, I guess. I don't know what we'll call it. We'll just see if it even fits into that framework. But I think what we're going to do is add some as we move forward, or we may create a separate new video every week on YouTube, which is the semiconductor video that takes a look at maybe the top 10 semiconductor stocks. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. That'll likely play out here over the next few weeks. I think that pretty much does it. I don't want to hit 20 minutes, and we're hitting 19 right now. You have a great week, and we will be back next week with another Mag 7 report.